for a quick Devar Torah. It is a very interesting issue. This week's parsha is called Akev, which literally translates to mean heel, heel as a heel in your shoe, in your foot. And what the idea is that a lot of times there are what we'd call easy mitzvot that we don't really do. We sort of like trample on them. In fact, we don't think about them. It's too easy. It's too easy to forget about them. And so there's a danger that we'll trample on them. And we should regard even something that we consider an easy mitzvah or a very minor mitzvah as if it was the most important mitzvah of them all. Because we have some mitzvot, keeping kosher is important, but also something that's easy to forget, how you tie your shoes. There's a mitzvah to that. And people don't think about it, because it's so mundane. That is one of the reasons that the after blessing, the grace after meals that we do, the most complicated grace after meals among us is not for the great delicacies we might have. If we have meat, it's everything from God. It's one line, the entire grace after meals after eating meat. After eating a lot of things, it's either a few lines. After eating bread, it is the most complicated grace after meals. It's a very detailed thing that we learn it because we have to remember something the Torah is coming to teach you. Every society has bread as a major part of their diet. Bread is overwhelmingly a food of choice all over the world. Everybody eats bread. We forget how important it is. Plus, there's another interesting idea here. Of all the foods we eat, if you look at a cow, okay, that can be beef, that can be milk, because of the way the cow is. You look at grapes, we eat them off the tree. You look at anything else, it's easy to get from point A to point B to being eaten. When it comes to wheat, to bread, if you look at a wheat field, nobody would think that after a lot of steps, that wheat you see in the wheat field will actually be a loaf of bread. Because there's a lot of work we have to do to make it into bread, to make it into the staple that we eat all the time. So that's what the beginning of the Parsha is trying to convey. Don't think that just because something is out there and we see it all the time, that it's just taken for granted. Don't take anything for granted. Also, another important aspect of this week's Parsha is Moshe gives a warning that, when you're poor and destitute, you're going to God saying, God, help me. I really need your help. Now you've overcome that period. You're now wealthy. Stop and thank God, because even though you have wealth, it didn't just happen. Yes, you worked hard for it, but you also got there because of God's help. That there's very many famous stories about this, where people who became wealthy, would say it's God's hand in this. He was open. He's opened his business. He worked hard, but he also knew that if it wasn't for God, nobody would walk in. If God didn't want him to succeed, no one would walk into his business. There was a baker in the Heights, Washington Heights. They came to him and said, we would like to give you a hechsher. And he said, a Jewish guy said, I want to be open 7 days a week. And he said, okay, we won't give you a hechsher. He says, that's okay. His business was failing. So he finally decided, okay, I'll get the hechsher. And he was closed on Shabbat. And afterwards, she said, I was an absolute idiot. I was working 7 days a week, very hard, trying to make my business and getting nowhere. Once I began to keep Shabbat, I suddenly am doing great business because people are coming to my business. Um, that is also God telling him, take a day off. It won't kill you to keep Shabbat.